Here we are with another EU legend. This person has been playing since day one and will be playing to the end. And whatever game supersedes this, whatever zero gravity sport we have in the future, this person will be playing it and they will further be contributing to the meta of zero gravity sport. This person has been playing 8 competitive seasons back to back, captaining a very well-known established EU master team, contributing to the meta as we know it today, and also contributing to the player base we have this side of the pond. We talk about all of this in the podcast, but we also speak about their personal life a little bit. Why? Because they're married to someone they met in the arena. What? I don't know if they're the only one to do it, but either way, it's remarkable. It's remarkable that happened. This is the social side of this game, people meeting and things like this happening. So here we are, Finland's finest. This is SendoTarget. Let's get into it. SendoTarget.
Yes.
How you doing? Ow. Just hit my knee.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great, besides the whole fact that the game itself is shutting down that we spent so much time on. But otherwise doing great in terms of everything else, really. It's still a bit odd to not to have an end date to this game. We have LAN coming, we have people playing mixed, we have still mostly the same group of people. Of course, everyone's a bit down on, because it ends. It's a bit of a odd time still, and probably won't hit before like the day. I was just saying before I came here, I threw the disc a bit. I was like, this is gonna suck. Like I'm I'm gonna miss this coming online and just throwing a few discs. That's gonna suck. Otherwise, it's like because we spent so much time previously. We just spent a lot of time on building the community, EU community.
Yeah.
We tried to ramp that up before the whole news struck. We had quite active. Well, we're still active on mixed scrims, of course, but now it's mostly like maybe half of what it was. People still play, but then when they come online, now it's like, oh, it's gonna stop. Yeah, it's this weird like limbo. There's not knowing what's happening afterwards, and no one knows what is the projects that are now being brought out, what those are gonna be. Because for me it's like I've played this game since 2017, the first betas that came on PC. I was here the day one.
I'm going to interrupt you there. Let's reel it back. Okay, so we're going to give context because some people are going to be watching this and they're going to know exactly who you are. They're going to know everything already. Some people are going to be watching this. They could be NA folk, could be OCE, it could be people that don't play Echo at all. They're going to go, who's this SendoTarget green person? So for context, I'll get you in, but I'll just give you a little bit of an intro. So we play this game called Echo. It's shutting down. It was announced on the 1st of February. And we're now, at the time of recording, the 22nd of March. So we're a good couple months in now. And the dust is starting to settle. It's important to you because you, as an EU member and being around since what I believe is the very beginning of Echo Arena, you've put a lot of time and effort yourself, invested tons of, time and resources.
Thousands of hours adjacent in the game and adjacent to the game. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
So
you were going off.
Yeah, so basically, if I'm on I can like I'm Sendo, more familiar with SendoTarget. I've been in the game since 2017. I had a team that played that played in VRL and VRML called Shutdown, which was rather stable for 8 seasons. And after that, we had 8 seasons fully, like VRL and VRML count together, that's 8 seasons. And some seasons ago, we had a quick member leave just before the season started, and I figured there's a good time to take a break. I've done 8 seasons. I can now just enjoy the game again a bit more, and figured that we can start now. I was always part of the EU community, and we wanted more people to build it. Basically, having started the game back then, being a competitive player, I also found my current wife from Echo. So if you've ever seen the video with the Echo, the story that Richie made. That's me talking about the fact that I found a person that I was then going to marry. I'm now married, so there's quite a bit of
congratulations.
Thank you. It happened last March, but it's always congratulations afterwards. But there's also like the community we made in EU has gotten bigger. It was 120 to 130 people before the Quest released, and we were approaching 1,000 active players from the EU in the server before the news broke out. And it's always been a slow grind. We try to find people, try to get them to play, but there's always a core EU that was active, that was playing everything. I usually play mixed. I would like to play more, but life, and it's just one of those things that yeah, because you understand, like, basically with having thousands of hours in the game, thousands of hours outside the game, having rather massive life events surrounding the game, and suddenly someone being like, "Oh, by the way, we're pulling the plug from you in August." It's like, what? I mean, the friends aren't going away. Like, I've made good friends along the way. The server that we have for EU is not going away. We are gonna keep it open. Of course, for different stuff. Hopefully we see a Phoenix project made by whoever. What I'm guessing is the project made by Lemming, the Gorilla Tag developers. That will be rather prominent later on. When, I don't know, but it's a bit of a state of nothing at the moment. Still enjoying the game, but the back in your head is like, oh, this is gonna end. What's next? What do we do? It's because for me it's been I'm a very competitive person. I've competed since I was a kid. I competed in judo for 20 years, and I ended my judo Yeah,
Wow.
I ended my career 2017 spring in a national competition on a concussion, and then in July. Echo came about, so it kind of I continued my competitive.
Okay. I'm going to interrupt you there. Let's take it all the way back. So you are from Finland, is that correct?
Yeah. Exactly.
So could you tell me about what life was like circa 2015, 2016? What was going on? You've already mentioned judo. Do you want to speak about that? What other activities you had? Were you involved with VR at all at that point?
Yeah. Actually, VR. In terms of VR, I had the first DK one, which is the Oculus Rift development kit one. I missed the original because there was a Kickstarter for the original DK one.
Correct.
And I missed that by one day. I ordered the headset, and later on, the original buyers from the Kickstarter got the CV1, so consumer version 1, that most people are playing on still in competitive setting, got them for free. So I missed that by one day, but I still got it. And I used the Unreal roller coaster. I was like, this is really cool. This will be the future. I didn't, of course, to this degree, I didn't believe that would be a thing in less than 10 years. Then I got DK2, of course, afterwards.
Okay, before I can see this going very quickly forward.
There's a really long.
One more time. Why was the DK1 interesting to you? Can you remember when you first came across it? And did you have any conception
I'm old.
of VR?
Well, because I had a perception of VR from the 90s. Because I never used the VR headset in the 90s, which was probably a good thing, because if I had used that era headsets, I would have probably deemed them horrible.
Yes.
But I only saw the adverts. I saw the adverts like, oh, this is amazing, you're in the game, blah, 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 everything. And then it just died down, but I had that in my mind. And then we got the Palmer Lucky Kickstarter message and everything, and Carmack showing Doom on it. I was like, this is amazing. This is gonna like finally come in during my lifetime, even though it died down. And for me, it was mostly like, it felt like demos for a long time. The roller coaster, Unreal roller coaster, which was one of the first experiences, that was amazing. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm feeling the gut wrenching, even though all the good, it goes deep. VR has so many so many little things that they've come together in terms of user experience, how to make it not make you barf.
Yes.
And DK1 times you had none of it. It's like even the whole screen and everything was blurry. The image was tracking, like it was tracking fine, but the LCD screen had this thing when it leaves an image on the screen. Then you move, then there's a blur and everything, and that caused me sickness. I played quite a few games where I felt sicker and sicker, and even like afterwards, I couldn't use like just smooth turning at all
turning,
in any game. Like I just felt like every time I got like, oh, do you get what? Oh god. And
So I'm going to interrupt you there as well.
Yeah, of course.
So despite the motion sickness and what you just described with the image staying on the screen like that when you turn your head, why did you still pursue VR? Why? Because most people would be put off by that, and they're like, "Nah, it's not ready."
I think for me it was moments of persistence, like just feeling that you are in a different place.
Yes.
I think for me I was rather easily influenced by, well, to be fair, with this better VR, like having a feeling that you're somewhere else. Some people don't get that ever, and they're like, "Oh, this is just a character they move." For me, I had the first moments with, of course, the roller coaster is easy because you go up and down, you get the feeling of drop. Was one of the earliest, weirdest ones was there was a mod for Half-Life 2 that had a pistol. I don't remember the name. There was a pistol, and you had the arm extended in front of you, and it came from your shoulder out, basically. Of course, you played it with the keyboard and mouse. That it moved.
Okay.
But
I
you
don't know
didn't,
this
of course, you didn't have any controllers. But I remember feeling like having the notion that I had an arm protruding from my shoulder, and that being a normal thing. I was like, okay, I accept this now. And it was like, okay, it's an extension of me. I was like, this is ridiculous, but this is really cool. And there are moments of pieces and pieces of different things from other games that just landed like, oh, this is really cool. Then you get CV1, then you jump into like games with eventually touch controllers. That you could actually see your hands and everything. But that was still until Echo. That was all like, okay, this is.
So
I have to
Sendo,
suspend. Like, yeah.
I feel like it's going to happen a few times.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I have a thing of babbling forward, so it's okay.
It's great for podcasts because it means you're just constantly talking. But I will interrupt you here because
of course.
What I want to get at is because it's so easy to dive into virtual reality and Echo and like everything we've been doing for the past 5, 6, 7 years. But I want to ascertain, where are you coming from? Who were you before you came VR? So why was VR special to you? And like, you spoke about judo, but were you playing video games before?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I've been playing games since I was 6. Started with the original NAS, and then PC games mostly when I was a bit younger, like 7 years old and stuff and forward. I played quite a bit of space sim games, quite a bit of FPS and everything. But I had a really good imagination for like being somewhere else. If I was playing a game, it was a fighter jet game, Strike Commander, really old. That one of the highlights of childhood for me was Strike Commander. It was an amazing game. Either way, it was one of those when I would be rather easily soaked into the world. Like I would feel like I would be in the world. I would dream about being in the world. I would dream about doing this and that in that world. Like it was normal childlike imagination of like, oh, this is like I'm doing this and I'm actually there. Which resulted in me being a bit older and playing GTA San Andreas. And I went to eat in a burger place in the game. I was like, why am I feeling hungry still? And some of those things that just happen when you're really into a game that you play. And for me, it's always like I felt like I wanted to be part of the world, and I always had my imagination extend to it. So this makes it super easy. It's like you're actually in there. You're doing things in there. It's not a matter of like me imagining things and how I could be a part of the world. I'm in it. So yeah.
But judo as well. So that's the video games, your imagination, other worlds. Like, of course, that
judo
clicks
is kind of like judo was I was always really competitive, and my because in Finland you have basically what people do. They play ice hockey, or they do the track and run, or skiing, or football, for instance. But they were all like, I basically told my parents that I don't want to do those things that other people do. And then there was a news advert in the newspaper, of course, and they showed like, oh, judo, do you want to do judo? Like, yes. Then I happened to do that for 20. Well, I'm still like, it's a bit trickier now with post-Rona. I kind of dwelled down, and like I'm trying to get back into it at some point again. But because for me, it's like I want to take care of my own health, and since I'm older, people want me to coach, which takes away from my own fitness, which is not a good thing for me, because I need movement, I need activities. Either way, that was like 20. Yeah, I was competing from 96 to 2017, so 21 years.
You were competing, was this like, were you making money out of this? Was it that kind of level?
No, that was basically, this is like, I was competing on national and Nordic level, so I would go to Denmark, Sweden,
nice,
all over Estonia, just basically that would be weekend competitions. I would have like 20 or 25 competitions per year.
Did you ever dip into any other types of grappling or any stand-up fighting?
Yeah, I still do. I have massive like martial arts overall is like I have massive appreciations. For me, it's like of course for judo I complemented with Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Of course, at some point I competed in a no-gi national tournament 2006. MMA was some of the things I wanted to at some point do, like just to actually have a match and participate in that one. For me, it kind of cut off with the army, because in Finland you have to do you have your mandatory army service. So that for me, that kind of cut off that line, because then I went to school, university, not much time, so I kept competing in judo and tried to get into a rather decent state. I did get two national bronzes during, like, besides the whole like international competitions and some medals there, but that was like my two greatest achievements was bronze. But and it has judo is a rough sport for anyone nearing 30. It at some point if you keep training the same pace that you do, by 30 your tendons, you have basically shot bones. I have both of my like big toes are basically broken. They're like snap tendons and everything. I have my fingers are mangled from old shit and old stuff, and then then it's just a lot of like small things start to pile up.
Yeah.
And with VR, like competing in Echovr, for instance, is like you don't get that type of. Of course, you can hurt yourself if you hit things.
Out of curiosity, have you had any injuries from Echo? Other than punching walls and getting bloody knuckles.
I've bled. Like I didn't break. I have somewhat of a good thing in that sense that every time I punch in Echo, I clench my fist fully. I've hit walls. And I've done a proper fist, luckily, because I've hit a wall a few times. Not anymore, since my play space is big and there's rather nice space for the walls. Yeah. That I won't do that anymore. But I've definitely there's been times when I felt like we had I think it was VRL time, so preceding VRML.
Yeah.
I swing my arm. And I was like, okay, it feels wet. Like my hand feels wet. I don't understand what is this. I played until the match ended, and then I raised my head and like, oh, that's blood.
Is that? Around, have you had the similar thing in judo as well? Because I imagine that's just adrenaline.
Yeah, yeah. It's I've had quite a few. Not any like I haven't broken bones badly in judo, but I definitely had like tendon snap, and then bleeding from above my eye was actually the worst one, because that was during a national competition where I was competing to enter the finals. Because back then, where judo had a different rule set, so you could basically go for a takedown on the legs, which I prefer, which made me like judo less because they constricted that. Either way, I went for a takedown, and the guy who was against me didn't had his mouth open.
Oh, I thought you were going to say elbow or something.
No, he had his mouth open, and then because we don't have mouth guards in judo mostly, so his tooth went in above my eye, and then I took him down. I got a point for it, and then I rose up, and then my coach said like, "You have something in your face." I was like,
"Oh my god!"
What? And then
my god!
I had a bit of a bleed, so like half my face was covered in blood.
Fuck.
And I was like, I'm still good. Like, I'm still good to go. Like, this is fine. I just wash it, like, wipe it out. And then the doctor came and was like, no, you can't. Like,
No, you
can't. No, you can't. And the other guy got the win. I was like, this is so wrong. And I wanted to continue. I never had like, it doesn't matter if it's judo or echo or whatever. I always had like, I want to play. I want to have the match until the end. To me, that's important. Doesn't matter if I'm winning or losing. It's always that's one of the things that I apply in both or whatever I compete in, I guess. But it's
okay.
Yeah.
Let's So we spoke about judo, spoken about your video games that you were doing before, your interest in virtual reality, coming across the DK1 one day too early for the Kickstarter to sign up to get the free CV1. How annoying. But they're very early on. So tell me about going from VR's amazing, to Echo, because that's always an interesting step.
Yeah, there's with Echo, it was like, let's say with CV1, well, touch made it more interesting. I played super hot VR for quite a bit on Robo Recall. Super hot VR, I actually played enough that I had a world record on one level for one day before the glitch players took it, because you can carry the weapon to the next level by doing a certain trick.
Okay.
I didn't do that, but I held the best time on one map for one day. So but coming to Echo is like, it was weird, because I never had that experience before in VR. Like, I would have moments of disbelief, of just like, okay, this is my arm. Like, this is okay. This is like, I never had such a moment of, I came to play. I would play for hours. I would not, because I had the thing with because I have small kids, or had small kids. They're not that small anymore. That they wouldn't sleep long, so I would sacrifice my own sleep to play this game, and I would basically play like maybe 5 or 6 hours in a row, rather easily, and then I would come off the game. And the first days that I was playing, I came up and I went to the kitchen and I tried to push myself off from the cabinet. I tried. I was like, this is stupid. Like, this is like, I was like, I was trying to like this makes no sense. But I was like, you played 6 hours this, and did why? And then I had so many dreams about Echo. I remember so many dreams. I was going to sleep. I was in my bed, laying down, and then I was dreaming about getting up the launch tube. I dreamt about going up there, and I would dream about touching it was so vivid. And then I touched the launch ring, and I woke up because it wasn't there. I had so many dreams and then at some point it was like, you're in a different body. Like, this is my other body. And so at some point it kind of dissipated into like, because you have those like many types of sci-fi shows where you load into a character, and you're a different person and you have an avatar. And this is the only game that really brought it to me. Like, it's not a big military guy or a pair of hands or anything. It's like, okay, this is me just in another place. It just works. It works really well. I didn't dream as much. I stopped pushing myself from things, but it's still there. Like, I feel like this is just a cozy, nice place to be. Like, I like coming just to throw the disc at times, playing with other people.
Yeah.
There's so many people I've met and who are good friends from VR that we met in real life for the first time. It's like, it's you, but it's the wrong face. And this,
Yes. I had this first time meeting people. It felt like that was their avatar. Their avatar was this like human.
Yeah, because you recognize the mannerism of the people, you recognize the voices, and then it's like, I know you, I've seen you, I know you. It's really great. Like, you don't get that from. I might be wrong, and some might upset some people who say that in other games, of course, too. But I've played quite a few VR games, and then come back to Echo every time rather quickly, which is horrible in terms of having a games library where you play other games. Like, 10 minutes, I could be playing Echo on this time.
Literally, I was playing Half-Life Alyx, like arguably the best VR game ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like 10 minutes in, I'm like, I could play some Echo right now.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. Like,
time wasted.
Echo. It's not the most prettiest game. It's not, but everything just works. Yes. You have a setting where you can chill. You can come online, and if you want to just like have a mindless throwing, you can throw the disc. Like, you have a basketball court in VR. You can just take the disc and just throw it for a while, and just chill. Or you can just float. Or some people even slept in Echo. We have a few videos of people early on who were like sleeping in Echo. You could wake them up in the game. It's like, and you get the competitive setting, you get people, you get social cues, you get a lot of people. Like I'm using my hands to talk. I'm not Italian, but I seem to do. I do that quite a bit, but. You get so many mannerisms. You get so much like the stuff that you also miss during Corona times. Like, I would have probably gone insane if I didn't have Echo, because it felt like, I just meeting my friends in VR. It's like, it doesn't feel too bad. And then I have a few friends who were like, this feels so insane. I haven't gone anywhere in a while. I'm like, this doesn't feel too bad. I wonder why. But I could compete. I could compete in tournaments. I could meet my friends. I could chill, chat with people. It was really a savior back then.
Okay, so okay, cool. So that was your experience getting into the game. That's why it meant so much more than other VR titles that were around at the time. What was your experience? So were you playing Echo from day one?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Can you talk about that journey and how that led to the LAN events? I assume you're at the LAN events.
I was in the first. There was a first LAN event in Europe, was in Hamburg. Because I was playing since the first beta, but I wasn't in VRL until we made the team for week 6 or 7, I think, and that was already the first LAN event was on the weekend we participated for the first time, like the first for VRL first season, and that was like I didn't think there was even a competitive league at that point. That came as a full surprise. At some point, because for the first time, back then I played a lot of just pubs. I wasn't aware there wasn't such a thing as a mixed scrim. There wasn't even a private game mode. There wasn't even a private arena. Like, was it day before or 2 days before the VRL started? And I was just enjoying the game. And
so they built private lobbies for the league or the
basically they had like VRL was a big Oculus backed competitive league for the game, which had a ridiculous budget compared to like millions in the production, and then several thousands, tens of thousands in the prices, which is really mad considering the size of the game and size of the VR community back then. And I think RADDavid had done what was a bit like pushed to make it happen rather quickly, because before that you only had pubs and you had the social lobby that was much smaller than what it is currently. And then I think 2 days or something really, really ridiculously short time before the actual league started, they managed to push it in so you could just load into the lobby. And for me, it's like I found my first teammates in pubs. Had Biotrix from more known for Team Gravity, was the other founding member of Smash Dash, where he was like basically at some point like, hey, we should make a team. If you've ever seen Via, he's rather loud, so it was basically him screaming that we should make a team, and then we found RADDavid as well, who became a goalie, and we played that for the first half of the season, I think.
And
then
who else was on your team then at that time? So you, Viatrix,
me, Via, and then RADDavid. RADDavid was a rather like early on. He was a good player. Like in terms of like if you look at it now, the early times, the terms of how are you good has changed drastically. In terms of that time, he was good, a good player, and he had he played less and less at some point. He was notorious for screaming in the game. He had he was a really good goalie, but if you got the disc behind him, that would basically burst into yelling about how he hates the game and everything, and in life, which was because back then you didn't have backstacks, you had 3v3, so the goalies were always alone. Yeah. And we would call it goalie disease, because all the goalies, like if you had a happy goalie, he wasn't a good goalie. All the good goalies were sad and hated life. That was basically how do you find a good goalie? Someone who hates the world. See them in the lobby, you get them. He's gonna save a few discs. That was basically how we started, and for me, it all feels a bit lumped together, because it's like I started competing in BRL, first season, second season, third. Then we did the VRML preseason, because when it changed to 4v4 was a good change. That was the best change for the game.
So before, we'll definitely get to that. So the change from three a team to 4 a team. But could you talk about first of all, the format? Was ESL these LANs that we've seen on the YouTube channels? Was that a separate thing from VRL, or was it like was VRL?
No, it was a part of VRL. You would play weekly. You would play weekly cups. Basically, we had a Sunday cup that had a money prize for the participants for like top 1 first, and then it went down top 3, and you would get points on each. You would get points on each cup, and if you had enough points and you would rank high enough, you would qualify to LANs. And the LANs were made with like ESL. ESL was organizing them, and Oculus was providing the funding. And they were rather big events. The first one, the first Worlds, I didn't go to Hamburg. Hamburg was first, and then the OC4, which was a really big event. If you see the pictures of Lemming jumping high and you have massive screens back there, that was like the first.
That was, just to clarify something, was that OCE 4 or 5? Or
that was
it both?
4. That was 4. Yeah,
Okay.
4, and they had during 5 it was the Worlds finals in.
Right, so it was both, because I was getting confused.
Both, yeah.
I'd heard different, but that makes sense now.
Yeah, the OC4 was the first regional LAN for NA, and then Hamburg was the first regional LAN for EU, and then we had the first Worlds, which I attended, was Katowice for the World Finals, and that from there actually I met my teammates for the first time. I met the players that I've played with several times against each other, or just hang out in the lobby. We met there, and that was the first time I realized, like, to be fair, before already, that the game is really amazing, but the spectator value of the game, because I was watching Eclipse and Team Gravity on a Friday, and I was so stressed. I was so like it was Gravity won that one, by the way. It was taken away later on because of connection issues in the game. But I remember I was standing next to the spot where they were playing. I was staring at the screen. I was shaking like, oh my god, this is so close, this is so close, this is so close. Luckily, Gopshai was next to me and he had a drink, because I probably would have had a heart attack otherwise. I was like, this actually has promise. This could be a really cool spectator sport, and like actually a VR sport. It had so much value in terms of people spectating. And it wasn't a big group back then. It was the other players and a few others who came to watch. And that was really, really like just it was a spectator experience. You had all the components of a good match, good ambience, even though it was a small little segment, and you had people rooting for the teams, and it was really one of those like golden era times, when people there's so many promises of a future that might be big, which it turned out to be.
Got a question. At the time, you called it a golden era. Did it feel like that at the time?
Yeah,
Or was it more at the time? Was it more like looking forward, like next year?
Let's say in terms of the size of the player, like the player counts, it wasn't the golden era. It was rather small. We talk about it a bit jokingly amongst the older players as the golden era because the average age was much higher. So you would most were between, let's say, 20 and 40. Because the VR was expensive, and quite a few good friends were made during that time. I wouldn't like basically Quest coming out and so many players coming up. That's the thing that made Echo big and made VR, I think, a really decent staple. But for us, it was such a tight knit group and just really excited people who were. Well, just excited about the game and about the prospect and the future of it all. It felt like a golden era. It's the same thing as golden era of movies, 1920s. You think about it like, oh, cool, everything. Those who lived this golden era was small, everything, before all the big things. But it's mostly because it was so cozy. Now it's there's
but
people...
that's looking back, though.
Yeah,
like there's a quote from the US office that you don't know you're in the good days until the good days are the old days.
Yes.
But at the time, like, was it appreciated or was it looking forward a lot?
I'd say most of the people who played then are still playing now. Not to the degree they were playing then, but most are still active. Gopshot's active. Boop is still playing. Slin isn't as active anymore, but he's doing his own little thing, Climby, which is... But
I'll be honest, I don't know much about Slin. I haven't seen much of him playing. I mean,
Slin was still with us in season 3, I think.
Okay.
Because me and Slin play. Like Slin was in Smash as like from pre-season to season 3, so 4 seasons, and we he wasn't any more interested in actually competing. At that point, also the Quest 2 came out, so we both swapped into Quest 2, which would have needed way more time to play on it in that point too. So it was getting a bit like, oh, we've played together so long now, and everyone's getting a bit like, I mean, we all know each other, we all know the stuff that's happening, and it's like, oh, maybe we should try something fresh for once. But all those people are still like, I met Slin's been at my house. We were celebrating marriage here last summer as well. Slin's been here. Afen that most people know on EU server to be the bot Afen, but Afen is a person.
What? What?
Yes, Afen is actually a person, a really, really nice person too. A bit unique, he has his ways, but he's a really nice person too, and we try to see as often as we can. Next time, hopefully he'll be at LAN. I think he booked the tickets, I'm fairly sure. Slin's coming. Boop, of course, is still playing actively or playing in Blast, and then we have quite a few Gopshot, of course. Originals.
I hope he'll be there.
Oh, of course. It's like you can't miss it, but no, like that's the, like before there's a Phoenix project that's like, oh yeah, we can do this, and we have a reason to arrange LANs besides meeting up. It'll be the last LAN until future. Whatever, hopefully comes.
Say that again. Phoenix project. I haven't heard that term before. What's that?
Yeah, I may have used it in discussions before, because for me it's like Echo dying is of course it's dying, but for me a Phoenix project is a game that comes from the people who are trying to recapture Echo's soul.
Yes.
So of course you have a game now dying. So my hope is that there will be a Phoenix project, and to me, that Phoenix project being likely is Lemmings and Dave's game.
So is this a recent thing that's come up, or is this something that was around back then as well? This idea of a Phoenix project? Or are you talking about post-shutdown announcement?
Post-shutdown, yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's rewind. There's so many ways I want to go, but I want to try and keep this chronological as much as I can.
Yeah.
So pre-season VRML, can you talk about that era? There's two things in particular. So one, the experience of going from the excitement and everything with ESL money and all of that to then go into community-run VRML, but also EU server. I believe you're one of the original admins. Is that correct?
I'm one of the not fully, like, I'd say I'm one of the original members. Yeah.
Okay.
But I wasn't started. Well, that's been like probably 4 years ago. I wasn't the original admin, but I was always there. I was doing things. I was inviting people, chatting stuff, and just at some point it was like, I think it was Tutorial Bot or something like. Okay. I think, or Boop, who was like, maybe we should make him an admin just because he's getting people here. And that was my thing for a long time. Was I basically went through the Discords related to Echo, because we have, of course, a smaller region and everything. We had the issue of we can't find players from there's so many NA players in the mix. So I started actively just finding them and putting and then getting them in the server. And preseason was still rather small, actually, like in terms of, because it wasn't the Quest era. I think that was season.
So what was going on? So this is 2018, is that right?
Yeah, that was 2019, actually.
2019. And what was your experience? Because I've heard it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, from some of the NA guys that are involved with VRML, but from you on the EU side, who was heavily involved then, heavily involved now, what was your experience of the end of the ESL era and the beginning of the VRML? And also, at which point did the EU community become how we know it now? This EU teams.
Yeah, that was basically the original. We wanted. Well, it's water under the bridge. But originally, we would have wanted, because the weeklies were actually quite fine with ESL. The issue with ESL that we had back then was that their LAN events went really badly. There was always tech errors. Most of them, like even in their season 3, which was probably, there was a talk about season 4. They put PCs under a closed space and they would overheat, and that would be an issue. You would have like 2 or 3 hours of downtime on a stream. It looked really bad. And then the original ideas that we had and we were tossing around, that would be nice to have like VRML and ESL to collaborate, to still have the money, someone, of course, that stream, to have the money early on, and then basically push together for events that work and push together a league that works. And I think the early we had people from EU in the admin department too, and there's a lot of stuff that happened between, a bit of not bad blood, that's overextending it, but I like that what VRML in terms of size became. It has faults. It has human resources issues when it's a community-made league. It would need more people in terms of before Echo shutting down.
What happened? Yeah. So, but to take us back to then, so the situation back then is 2019, as you were saying.
Yeah.
What wasn't lining up, and how did we get from there to where we are now?
I think for the old players, like now with VRML, you have the prestige of like your master, your diamond. You've competed in the finals. You have badges. Back then too, it was badges. I think for the older players, when it transferred to a community-made league, it was we came from like $1 million production, and we went to a community-made league. So there was, of course, like it just started to accidentally put on emoji. That wasn't my intention. But yeah, I'm not doing this for a reason. So yeah, that was basically the initial, like, oh, we can try this, we can do this, because it was NA side was more involved to begin with, because they made it with the Pizza League. That was like that Pizza League was the first tryout for VRML, and I don't know if it's just a smaller region, but we didn't have we had a few active people, including, well, my current wife was one of the more active people involved in moderation and the admin work and everything. But people-wise, we didn't have as many who were more involved in terms of creating VRML. So we kind of felt like early on that it was more NA centric, and that kind of put us off a bit. We of course played it, and then we tried to slowly approach it in a way that we like competing. We love to compete. There are benefits to just playing this, and then it took a while before the excitement. It's hard to. It's really like you're spoiled, you know. You get spoiled on early on for like, oh, there's tens of thousands of euros in play. Like if you lose this game, it means this and this much, and then you go into another setting which is less. Of course, less. It's more about the competition and less about the big prizes. But there's a big disparity of someone who comes to VRML to a person who was in in VRL and competed for large prizes. So, but I still think, like, even though I've made a few comments about VRML, and I still do. I like to have an opinion on things that I see could be better. But I think so far that as in terms of VR leagues, there's really isn't any other thing that has grown so big and managed to do that even with the relatively low amount of people.
Okay, so that happened. So Sendo, how did you feel when that happened? Like what? Your personal experience of experiencing.
My personal experience was that
this isn't just like a history book. Like you literally were in this moment in history. Yeah. What was it like to be one of the guys that were paid all this money and flown out to events and stuff like that?
Good thing is I wasn't paid.
So you weren't spoiled.
No, I think over 3 seasons I got like 1.5k, I think. So it wasn't like I wasn't in the LAN. I didn't qualify for the LANs. Like there was a thing where the first season you had the top 4 teams that were qualifying for World LANs, and then season 2 and season 3 there would be top 2 from each region. First one it was the top 4 from each region, so it went smaller, and that was we were 4th, I think, season 3. I was like, oh, it's fine because we couldn't make it. There was really good teams back then. There was Aftershock, Blast, and Aftershock, or I'm mixing up teams already. Aftershock, Ouroboros, and Gravity were competing for. There was like, we didn't. Well, like I think we had a decent team. I've always felt like the teams I've had were good enough to beat top teams and be a top team. But back then it was like, it was okay because they were doing so much better. They had much better gameplay. And I didn't feel like I lost anything because I would still go and see them, except for the NA finals in OC5, because that would have cost us a lot of money. And I couldn't, like, I just used that. I watched the stream in that case. But
so what else was going on at the time? Were you? Oh, we haven't spoken about your work. What do you do for work?
I am a development manager for a fireplace company.
Fireplace.
Yes, I do a bit of everything from production development to testing to international relations to international purchasing to scouting different items, worldwide stuff. It's because it's a bit of a smaller it's a niche. It's a niche.
Fireplaces.
So basically, yeah. So if you're in the industry, you kind of end up doing a lot of things, and you can basically leverage that to other areas rather easily. But I kind of felt cozy in that.
And you said you're an engineer? You're a developer?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, bachelor's degree
Software.
Engineer. No, machine automation technology.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, and I've used that degree about 0 times in my current work. I've been in this industry for 16 years as well, I think. Wow. By now. I started packaging chimneys in a company, and then somehow I went to university, got my degree, worked there, kept working there. At some point changed companies, but I never changed from the fireplace industry anyway. I just kept doing this. But
did you ever see a future in software development?
Yes. Because I was I was drinking. I wasn't trying to grab the block. Back in 2015, 2016, I was involved heavily in developing a CRM ERP program that was made from scratch, and I was the project lead. Never had done any IT project before. I had a good concept of IT stuff and software development to a really like hazy knowledge, and did that for a year. We launched the product in like 6 months, and it was working. It was dealing everything from sales to sales to basically production, and I kept managing and adminning that and making new projects on it on top. But I was still in the fireplace industry and still doing the other stuff. So it kind of, I've always had a really close connection to software development in that sense. But also, I don't have I can't do coding or stuff like that.
Have you tried? Have you done any coding projects?
Oh yeah, I have had many times. I've had moments when I'm to begin with, like maybe 20 years ago, I had a game development book and some software on top of it. Then I've always tried, like, there's different code academies that I've joined and everything, and it's always like I'm just too split-minded. I'm just too split-minded on things. I need to have several things that I'm doing at once. I've always been more of a unfortunately the project lead type, but I like to have pieces and try to match them together. Instead of actually dealing with the piece, I like the other people to make the work. then I'll just like, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here, and lately I've tried with the Discord bots a bit. That's a bit more relaxed approach to do something from my own work, and then of course the EU side as well to dwell a bit deeper into it. But I'm not gonna really quickly make this into a profession if I'm like the way I am.
Do you want to?
Originally, yes, and I would like to have more basic know-how in terms of how to code, like just have it be more fluent or at least somewhat comparably okay. It's one of those things that I find enthusiasm at some point again, and see if it once holds, because I'm rather stubborn when I start something usually, but with coding it seems to be a bit more flaky.
So if an opportunity came up now, like the first one that comes to my mind is Vertex. If Vertex were like, oh hey, we need some support in this way, you've got the kind of background that would help. Is that the kind of thing you would jump on, or would you be a bit hesitant to?
I think it would be a bad idea for two in the same family to be in the same company. That causes issues.
Okay, yeah. This was something in the bank I had that we could go, like a topic to go to. Let's do it. Who's Nada?
Nada is my wife, first and foremost. We met originally in Echo back in 2017.
Amazing.
And always chatted, always talked in-game, Discord. Then in 2019, 2020, we were both in the situation where it was like, okay, this might turn into something. And then we basically started seeing each other is a funny term, because I had to go to work in Germany, so I would always meet her when I went there, and I of course would meet her in the game. And then we decided that this will be a thing that we would have to figure out a way to get her here in Finland at some point, and because she had a job in Germany back then, that she would move in a certain time span, move here. That was in 2020, that she would at some point try to move here. And what happened was, our plans got accelerated by quite a bit because the borders were closing. So she came to Finland March 17th, and the 18th the borders closed. So she was supposed to be visiting back then because I was flying there, she was flying here.
Yeah.
And then we basically, what was supposed to be 2 weeks turned into 6 months. And and she is now has been in Finland officially for a long time already. It was like 2.5 years by now. Like as in books here, not just in a weird state of like, oh
Did
yeah,
you
I'm
propose
here.
in a pub?
No. Actually,
In a social lobby, in combat lobby.
no, actually that would have been a good idea. I actually asked her we were doing a summer trip in Gdansk.
Okay.
And asked her, there's a river that goes there, and we were sitting in a restaurant, and then I popped the question there. That was basically rather more of the typical kind of proposal, but could have done it in VR too. Because we figured we did send a picture to RADDavid back then of like as a thank you for making the game. It was kind of fighting each other, and she plays like not a place less these days, Echo, but she was always involved, and of course on the side and everything. Like she was one of the original, because we had 2 EU servers actually originally. We had Champions, that was the incubator server for new players, and then we had the current EU server as well, and those got joined at some point, and it was really like we had such an extensive amount of like player nights where we would teach new players. She would organize those. She would organize there were so many things. We did so many things. There was when you have new people coming, right? And there's always the issue of like oh, there's no teams, but there are people who want to play, and no one wants to play with each other. So basically, Nada and Siri, that was also one of the original founders of Champions, were like, okay, so you play with each other now this weekend. So they made teams out of noobs. They smooshed them together and like, oh, you play this weekend, pop. And then we suddenly had like 25 teams that was equaling the amount of players of NA, because we were actively just like, you go together, you play this weekend.
What happened to that? Because by the time I joined that server, there wasn't that culture anymore. It was pretty much, it was just a scrimmer server.
Yeah, it's kind of the mass of the people was the issue at some point. Basically, it started to sustain itself. You had teams forming by themselves. You had players forming themselves, and then the coaching thing had quite a few people with older members. So of course, like work, kids, the usual, started to get in the way, and then would have taken too much time. So there wasn't also like with the older people, let's say plus 20ish. You have let's say plus 30, which was usually the people who were playing who were coaching, who were the active people, who were pushing people together, and then you have work stuff coming, kid stuff coming, everything, they kind of go on the backside. And then you have new people coming who've never seen this type of thing happen. They develop into good players, but there's no like mindset behind the whole, because they're young, they want to play, they want to be on top of your game, but you don't have that teaching mindset necessarily, and you don't have to be like top players or the high tier players. It's okay if they play for themselves, if they play for the skill they have and develop, and you have to have a certain, like, you can't force a person to teach other people. It has to come from them that I want to teach you, I want to show you things. It can develop later on, but if someone is, as opposed to someone's 13 or 15 as a really good player, it's less likely that they are in the mood to try and teach other players at that point. It's more of I think that's why Tyro and stuff became so successful too, is because there was a massive upscaling of teenagers and kids overall, which is, otherwise the game would die if the mass wouldn't come. But that makes the adults into a really awkward position in that whole scenario. So it's just kind of did die down. We had quite a few projects and people, but there weren't any people coming afterwards that would have taken the mantle and would have had time. On the occasion, though, there have been quite a few people who are now top players that have taught a lot of people, besides not having an organized evening. For instance, like a lot of people, Niles is one of the original players that was in the game. He's taught so many people.
Yeah, he's taught
just
me
because he's really like if he sees something that you do objectively wrong and in terms of the game or anything, he says it. Like, you should do this, you can do that. Like, he's openly teaching every people around him, and so many people have learned from him. And even he is now a bit more on the slower side. But people like those make the teaching easy because you don't have to have anything organized. But the amount of people who are like that is rather low. So and it's also now that you can. Early on, it was really like everyone was figuring out new things. Each and everything was new. When you figure out something like stacking, for instance, look at what I can do. Look at what I can do, and everyone was showing each other, and it was like basically spread over the week, and the like catapult launches turning into launches without the catapult and everything like that. People were like, look at this, we're doing this. Like, that type of, because everyone learned these things as new. It took us 3 years. What it takes from someone joining now 6 months or less, because those were new things. So it's a really different environment, and you have a lot more material. You can go to YouTube and you have a bunch of videos of people who explain the basic game mechanics. Like Martin's videos are really good, even though they can't remember when they were made. So it might be
2018-ish.
So might have. I think later, because it was.
Was it later?
I think it was still 4v4, but still, like, the basic stuff. Yeah.
Well, those were the first tutorials I was watching. Martin Third tutorials.
Yeah, and they're really good, and they're really like. Because we actually you know this, but we started making in the EU community. We made an attempt to create videos again. To teach people.
This is very recently, right?
This is very recently. It basically, the reason why it died down was the shutdown of Echovr. We had quite enthusiastic group of people. Fiend as one, Winter, Scubs, quite a few people. You were in the group too. Who were going to make videos and helpful points and other things because with so many players, it's really hard to organize a private arena to teach everyone. So the plan was to create videos and advertise EU server to build it up more. But dude, circumstances, it down rather quickly.
We'll get to the shutdown. Now that's what we'll get to next. But before that, 8 seasons.
Yeah.
8 seasons you were captain of Smash Dash.
Yeah, and it's still in hibernation. We never know if a Phoenix project comes along. You never know. Could be a different game. Could be.
But so what was your experience being a captain? Did it come natural to you to lead the team? No.
I'd say I've always been rather talkative with people otherwise, and enjoying, but being a captain and everything, because I came from a sport that is mostly a single person sport. Like in judo, you don't have a team, you don't lead a team. Like I played football, hockey and stuff when I was growing up, so I knew the team component and everything. But Echo is the first team game that I've actually played and competed in. So for me, it's a learning process, because there was also like times when you change a player, when you see that some road have come to an end, like they're bored or they don't want to play anymore. It's apparent when they play. And for me, it's like it was a learning process to recognize these things and not try to drag some things on. There were cases when we played and the players got, you know, when they're like they're done, but they still come to play because you ask them to. Yeah. And for me, it's a learning process. Like at some point, it's okay to push forward and look for alternative options and look for the best of the team, because the one person not being interested in it anymore will affect the others, and you have to look at the big picture. And that's only the team component of like you getting like, can you do today? Can you do today? Can you do? Are you okay today? Tomorrow? Right? Oh, you have a birthday. That's fine then. We can't do tomorrow. Then we do Friday, and that was I organized every scrim, every match, everything for a good part of, was it 4 years, 5 years? So I did that for 8 seasons, and it wasn't that taxing, but it definitely is a bit of a time sink. And I was quite enjoying now I'm like playing mixed and everything. I'm enjoying the game massively, actually, which is kind of a shame considering August. But yeah, I've always tried to be fair in terms of being a captain. I put quite a bit of pressure on myself to perform well, which having the original Quest 2 controls, now Quest Pros, which makes it a bit harsh when I know certain conditions aren't met necessarily in terms of how I play. And in basically probably growing inside, because you come from seeing your perspective only and having 1v1s with other people, and then you move into a team setting, and then you move into the backline and you start seeing the different pieces happening in front of you. What is next? What is happening now? What we should do now, while focusing on what you're supposed to do at that moment. So it's been a big learning curve, and I really like it. And I wouldn't say I've always done a good job, but I hope people who've played with me have enjoyed it, at least to the times that they still don't enjoyed the game as well. So I'm really thankful for the people who played with me, and I went through all the stages of me explaining things to them over and over again why this should work, even though it might not work all the times. Quite a bit of development from the stage of like when you start planning things, like in terms of joust and everything, you think like, oh, there's this and this will work here and this will work here. But then you come to think like, oh, you have to think about pacing. You have to think about slowing down, fastening up. This doesn't work against this team because they do this, and this happened now, so we have to do this. And just overall thinking in terms of a bit of pre-planning and reactionary team-wide planning. It's definitely something that has been brought by Echo. It's not from anything outside in that sense. It's just grown on the game. I'd say it's really valuable in terms of whatever hopefully team-like game comes afterwards.
Just to clarify what you're saying, you're talking about the uniqueness of this game. So the not mechanics, but the strategies that come about having a 3D space to attack.
Yeah,
there's things that are very unique to this and never been done in any other sport.
Yeah, it really is the thing. Also, you have so many I could probably come to this arena and blindfold myself and just start from the tube and then end up touching the blocks and just moving my way around them. Yeah. But it's also from having played so long, and you see certain things like the meta is what it is and has been for. There's so many things where other teams can do the same thing with different pacing. That will make it work, and there's other things that will work on the other team, because for me also, like, we have 2-stack meta, which has been a big thing for a long time, and the options to think the big picture through the player. So some things you can slap on like oh, you two will be the front stack and you will do great and you can do this and that. You can't do that with these other two. You have different chemistry with different people, and you can expect these two to do certain things well, and these people will do this thing well, and you have to think about who's in your team and what do they do well, and how can you use it, while thinking how you can still play. Because I have living in Finland after the raycasting update went away, I was actually a rather fast stacker with C back then. Who was a member of Smash back then, but when it was taken away, stacking was a rather hard thing, and now I'm still much slower stacker than most people due to my ping, because I'm playing on 60 to 70 ping, which is high in terms of EU. So I've had to come up with ways to leverage a bit of like latest that I'm using front stack for speed for the second stack, or I'm splitting fully, because for me it's like I do solo marks in mid because of it's more beneficial for me to think that I have a person in the back who's marking the deep guy. I'm in mid marking these persons,
And
then we have
just to break this down, because the high level people understand what you're saying, but people that may not be on point with the terminology you're using, what does that mean? So you played mid. What's mid? And then what do you mean by marking?
So we have this rather nice looking arena here. And it has basically, when you start, you have a mid section, you have your own side, and you have the opponent's side.
Yeah.
And when we have joust, which is basically the QB joust, so the other team gets the disc, and they have to they start with it, and you start your defense side, and you both start from your own side, of course. And middle is the spot that you have to cross, and it's the biggest chokehold of the entire arena. That is the easiest for interception. So interception in terms of the marking is when you mark either the path line of the disc where it's going, or you mark the player that's receiving the disc. And for me, it's like that's something. Middle is the most. It's the nicest place because it has most of the clutter. It has more of the places where you know that this is gonna go. Like if there's two in the tube here and one there. The more likely one is it's coming through here because there's two, so they can continue forward. And just seeing that is something you get to understand when you play the game long enough. You see certain things, like the disc has to go through there, and it has to go through here. If the guys are there, it probably lands there. And you can predict things to a certain degree, and you can basically influence your own gameplay with that. And that's one of the nicest things. It probably comes in terms of I like planning against the team. When I was another thing that was a time thing. I watched the games of other teams quite a bit back when I was playing really actively still, and I would check what they do, and then I would get the map basically of the arena, and I would draw where the people should go. And I was just like, oh yeah, you guys need to go here, by the way. And if they do this, they will go here. And that's something I learned from Niles too. Like Niles was basically, he did that to an extreme. He did that to such a detailed degree. He would watch the replay viewer, which is if you can get a recording from Echo, so you can watch it in replay viewer. And he would make massive videos and sessions to basically point out spots where people need to go. I would do that from a top-down map, really simplified compared to that. But there's a component of like you do these things against the opponent, you train for these things. Then in scrims against them, you wouldn't do these things because you want to do them in the game, and you would do different things and test that with the other teams and everything. There's so much on your plate that you can do. You can just come online and play too, which some do, and they do rather well. For me, it's like I always wanted to, if I was competing for real, I wanted to have all the tools that I can think of. Like, of course, I want to win, so why not have a bit of time to, just...
Sendo, how comes you never got into casting? Because I think your player breakdown will be phenomenal, and like play-by-play breakdown.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm time. It's mostly time. It's a bit of a because the casting times are usually rather late. Most of them are from NA. There are quite a few EU ones too, and I always wanted to play instead of cast.
Yeah, fair.
I do like the breakdown. I'm willing to talk to people about Echo for ages. It's just there's so many components in the game.
Are you playing at Duckman LAN? Are you competing?
Yeah, mixed.
Are you on the second day, or you're in the mixed? Are you?
I'm on the mix, yeah. I didn't have a qualifying team this time. Smash didn't play, so I had last year we won. Harlequins was the team. Was me, Boss, Snowy, and then oh no, Babajar, on the same team. And then
just to go back a little bit, so we were talking about doing 8 seasons. You kept playing. Your experience as a captain. And you spoke about teammates dropping out for whatever reason, personal reasons, whatever's going on. Some people want to play and then they want to take a little bit of a break. It's too much.
Yeah.
You carried on playing fairly consistently for 4 or 5 years. Why?
Yeah, I'm stubborn. it's I process things to repetition, and I always saw like with Echo that I could do better, even competing in the leagues, and I would always see that there's a road to be better. Like I didn't feel like, oh, this is the spot where the team will stay. This is spot where I will stay. I always saw a progression. Like I always could see that we could be much better. We could do this and that better. And then there's the human component of people not necessarily feeling the same way. But I always felt like there was something like there's always something new. You could always do something better. You could always improve. And for me, that's important to have a line to follow. And in terms of the Smash and the team, I always felt like that was a thing. We tried a bit of a return in season 6, but we had there was a motivation died just before basically the season. We played 2 games, and you could smell it. Like you played long enough, you can smell it basically when people aren't into it. And I was like, okay, so I'll just take it chill. I'll enjoy the game. I'll play mixed.
Did you ever take a break?
How long was it? 1 month.
You took 1 month off. What was going on? Oh, were you getting married? I'm guessing.
No, that was just as season 5 was starting, and season 4 when we had the team basically breakdown or lost the player just beginning. I didn't want to fumble and get a new teammate like 2 seconds before when I had so many ideas what to do. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just take a break. We went on a holiday to Cape Verde, and
Nice.
then came back. I was like, oh, I can still chill and just do a bit. And then at 1 month, Spot was like, I have to play again.
You got the itch, did you? You got the, I need to play.
Yeah, it's like, then, I came back to play mixed that day. And it's like, if I have a week break, that's a long one. It's like 2 or 3 days is about max I want to do.
And how does it feel when you come back after a week off?
It's like riding a bike.
Because I love it. One of my favorite feelings is when you don't play for like a week or 2, you come back in and like, it just like, you're at home. You just feel it. Like
there's also a sense
of
like I really like now that I've played quite a bit with players I've never played with before, because of now with the times that before that I would use for team scrims, because I have a limited time, of course, that I can play the game. The time that I would use for team scrims, I would now use for mixed. And I've played with quite a few new promising players too, which is a bit of a shame again because of the things happening in the background.
Okay, let's. I've been trying to hold off it, but we'll go to it. So, what was your impression? How were you feeling? Where were you at when you heard the news that the game was being ended?
I was at home. It was mostly disbelief, anger. Well, let's say anger. I was more like when you get the news of like Echo, the season pass when it was ending. I'm not. Yeah. I didn't feel like that's a good sign.
Yeah, that was.
So I was like this. That was there's something looming here. That's not right. And then when the news came, I was like, okay. And then the whole reason, the reasons why it's shutting down, the game, the player amounts, everything is like there. So many things that doesn't add up. And because Echo was mostly when it was released on Quest, it hasn't had that many updates. You have, I would say tens of thousands. It's not in low tens of thousands. I've seen the Ignite stats too. It's like you have such a player base on a game where you released a few cosmetics and you haven't advertised. It's on the 7th highest played game on Quest Store while this news was being released. Yeah. So it's like this just doesn't add up at all. And then I was like, okay, I posted on Twitter, I think, towards Rad's post. I was like, okay, this is a really bad way to advertise Echo Arena 2, if that's a thing. And Yeah, it's still a moment of disbelief. Like I come and play, and I'm doing the same things I did before. I tossing the disc, having a mix, having a laugh, chatting with people. I think it's now in the stage of like denial. It's
Yeah.
a bit, and I do like the effort that people have put on protesting. There's
Yep.
there's really like people are now. I think there's a bit of a downturn now after the initial thing. But I was expecting that. But seeing people paying for a plane to fly over Meta HQ to bombard people with questions, and then it's quite sad. And I know that with Carmack, well, reading what Carmack said about like if you have 10,000 players, that's a valuable player base. Like think about if Quake Live shut down, that would be a massively dramatic moment. Or you took out, well, what was other, like Rocket League. Is another thing. I was imagining Echo becoming Rocket League of VR, because you could use the same arena here by changing textures. You could have a different themed lobby or casual modes. There was that was also the years and years of suggestions about mini games, about having you could load up into a game where you use the disc to hit on targets and get points and score high scores on those, or echo racing where you could stack with people. Just there's so many stuff, like a lot of different components that you could have used so many times, and it's a shame that they haven't. It feels like a wasted opportunity to suddenly have like, okay, because it's 5 years old and we are having issues with having people for it or something. Whatever is the reason, it's a shame. So many people have put money, time, effort, and they're building adjacent to Echo. They're building a lot of stuff surrounding it. VRML is massive in terms of Echo players. If you look at the next highest like player count on VRML, I think it's not even third of Echo players. This is it for like esports wise in VR, it's a massive blow. It doesn't make sense. It's just, well, it probably makes sense to someone. It makes sense, but it just, there's so many things in this game that I would assume people see like, okay, there's a chance here to make money, or there's a chance to make this entertaining, and there's all of it. You have a spectator client that is massively amazing. You have people who are doing cam work, so much media, so much promises and everything that you could do with this game, and I was still expecting it to grow, which makes this news even more. Well, I'm waiting for a Phoenix project. That's my like go to at the moment. There will be a project at some point. It'll be fine.
Say there isn't. Say there isn't a Phoenix project.
I will probably boot up Lone Echo at times and go toss the disc at the corner. This was so amazing. Sad. This was amazing. No, life continues. Of course, it's not the end of everything, but it's definitely it's a world that has been created. There's so many people, so many connections, that people enjoying the game. It's their version of backdoor basketball, backyard basketball, and then it's like their version of going out on a some do the pub leagues. Some basically it's the same as my dad went to play football with their mates when he was a bit older, and they would have a beer and just like kick the ball. You can't do that now with Echo. It's like you take away the arena, you take away the place where you can play, and you can't build that outside of this place and outside Meta services at the moment. But it's still gone, or will be gone. Which is, if you think of it as a sport, if you think about it, they take your basketball court away, they take your football field away. That's basically what's happening in a virtual sense.
Okay, I've been holding you back from it this whole time. Let's do it. So Phoenix Project, what does that mean to you?
Phoenix Project to me means a game that will take Echo mechanics and Echo gameplay in terms of 0G team-based, hopefully disc game, and takes it to VR in the soul that Echo has in the best of moments, and then kind of expands for it. So the small things like improving like minigames, creating different maps, creating different, like, it doesn't have to be exactly like this either. Like there's a story, like you can go with FPS if Onward shuts down this contractors. Like it's not the same, but it's an FPS. If you have a strategy game, you shut down that. You have others. It's not the same, but you shut down. If you shut down Echo, what do you have? Like, what's the? There aren't any like similar. This is like basically if you shut down ice hockey. Like, there's no ice hockey games now, and yeah, I'm kind of hoping that it captures the soul, the mechanics, improves on them, makes it into, because with Echo it's a lot of the mechanics, but it's also the expressions and what you can do with your avatar and stuff like that. There are fixable things, and have been for a long time. But as a default base to build on something new, it's amazing. There's this zero G sports, like, why not? Like, that has to exist. It's done so well, and I do like the fact that with Lemming and Dave, and there's from Oculus David Yee also, who's involved in the Gorilla Tag development.
So who are they? Yeah, sorry.
Lemming is the Gorilla Tag, the OG maker creator, but originally he was an Echo Arena player and won the first two worlds with Eclipse. And
alongside
after season
Pallador.
3, yeah, alongside Pallador and Simeon, and then why did I forget? This is gonna haunt me. Oh God, it was season 1, but I should remember this. Oh no.
Shame on
no.
you.
Yeah, exactly. I can't be much of a historian if I lose memory. Can I Google? No. But like they're basically like he left Echo as an active player and made, I can't remember the company name now, but made Gorilla Tag, and then RADDavid, originally of course from Ready at Dawn, basically went to work with Lemming on Gorilla Tag, and then he was the original developer who made Echo Arena in a game jam during 2016 or 17, in the before the entire thing was actually released. He made it in a game jam, and he was the head developer or the project manager to a degree for Echo, and was responsible for the development of the game, and was the person who was leading all the engineers and all the coders and stuff like that, and was heavily involved. And then from Oculus, David Yee was basically one of the people who was pushing Echo Arena really hard early on in VRL as a spectator sport and VR sport as well, and he still remembers the time, and he was really a nice guy too. But he was also excited about Echo and what it would bring, and he also showed like he clearly was a bit sad about the news about Echo shutting down. And those three combined in the same company, that you have the person who was heavily involved in competitive Echo at some point, the person who actually made the game, and who was also really heavily involved in competitive Echo because he played on the team himself, RADDavid, for a good while. And then you have a person who was on Oculus for a long time, pushing VR sports and pushing Echo Arena as a really as a promising game that will take over the VR landscape at some point, and have those three together, and them pushing on a new project that's to me the most likely Phoenix project will, no pressure, but
Yeah.
that hopefully takes the mantle and continues the soul of the game. It's really would be a shame to think about backwards, like, oh yeah, back in 2023 we could play this team-based game in 0G, and that was really fun, but I'd like for this to be the not the end, but basically the beginning of a genre of games, or at least the platform for a Phoenix project to just come and swoop the players away.
I like the expression Phoenix Project because of what it illustrates, like something coming out of the ashes of the death of this game, something new and better comes out of the ashes. And it takes like you say, there's pressure on Lemming's team. So another Axim is the company that owns Gorilla Tag. Calling it a Phoenix project, it takes the pressure, or the best it can, off of them, and allows. There's Hex. There's another one as well that are going for a bit more of a literal remake of Echo. Yeah. But like that's free. That's 3 companies that are looking to make a 0G sport.
Because there are so many enthusiastic and motivated people and really skillful people who play the game.
But how many? Like, I'm sure Lemon is talented. He's a talented developer, but still, him by himself in his bedroom as a developer made Gorilla Tag outselling all of these AAA studios. Massively outselling. What's to say there's 100 other gifted 16-year-old developers that can do even better?
That is true. I mean, Lemming is over 30, but I think he's over 30, at least close to 30.
I'm saying 16 because generally they're the ones that are going to be making the most. They're the ones who will make their job easier.
I think it's a possibility. There will be people who are like really talented young people, really talented older people who are basically one of the people who played Echo really enthusiastically for many years and have spent so much time, and they don't want to see it go away. I feel like there's a good portion of those people who are talented, who are able to make something of it, make something of the death of this game, and just build something that will bring it at least as a concept, as like a successor, bring it alive, which is what I hope will happen. Sip of water.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time.
You just realized like you can't drink in VR.
I've sipped a couple times. I've got a mug of tea and it's gone very cold.
But yeah, that's kind of what I hope will happen, is that some of them will not come to fruition, and some of them hopefully will. And among those, I hope there's a game that will take Echo's place when it's gone.
What do you think is the future of virtual sports? What does it look like in 10 years?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really loaded question. I kind of, at the moment, I'm in a bit of a, because of Echo shutting down, it's a bit of a downturn. I feel like this was a blow to VR esports as a whole, because so many things have been built into it. But I hope that in 10 years it's if not as big, then at least a sizable audience compared to current audiences of VR events, and to push it into a platform that is basically self-sustaining and have viewers and enthusiasts and 10 times the size now. It would be nice start. Basically just get viewerships on Twitch and everywhere, or Vertex or whatever stadium is would be like to have that triple first, then quadruple, then go 10 times, or just I'd say 10 times now is a good appropriate dream, and 100 folds as a bit of a wilder one, which hopefully will happen sooner than later. But I'm because VR has that issue that you have to try it to understand it, and I hope that with the spread of headsets and more people being able to play those games and see what they're about, that they would appreciate the higher level play of those games. The same thing that has happened with Counter-Strike, with League of Legends and everything, to have more people who understand how the game works, but aren't to that level yet to actually follow people who are on the highest level and they want to root for the favorite teams and root for the players and just make that into that's kind of the needs a bit more headsets sold. I think that's the thing.
Say that happens, more headsets get sold, but like then what? Okay, cool. You've got more people. You've got 10, 100 times the amount of people with headsets on.
Yeah.
What needs to happen then? You've got the player base. It's gone up.
Yeah, if there's a player base there, if there's a player base, like considerable player base, and someone with more money and more funding in terms of streaming side, would need to latch onto it and just push it.
You're talking about promotion.
Promotion, yeah. Basically push it with money a bit at some point when the player base is big enough, because it happens organically from Twitch and organically from VRML casting games and everything, but there's a certain limit where if those matches got pushed to the front page of Twitch or
But you know how else it happens as well? Influencers. It takes a PewDiePie to pick up the game, play it once, and then it just blows up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of the dream scenario would be to have a landslide for the game. Now it's basically the biggest landslide we have now was game shutting down and the aftermath for it, which would be nice to get more players by now. But I think, oh look, Quest Pro is dying. But yeah, it's I hope that will happen for the Phoenix project sooner than later, that there will be streamer influencers, people who will like shine the light on these types of be it VR FPS or hopefully zero G.
What do you think about VR FPSs? Do you play
I
many?
like them. Yeah, I like FPS games as well. It's a bit like there's so many VR FPS games, but only one Echo. But I do like Contractors. That's for me. It's like I like more of the realistic handling of guns, but I don't have the patience to play onward games with longer waiting times and just everything. So Contractors for me has been good because I went to the army, so I have a bit like if I have a gun, I just want it to act like a gun a bit more than I don't want CS. I don't want Counter-Strike guns, which is Pavlov is basically Counter-Strike guns in VR, which is fine. They made it really well, but it doesn't. It's more of the arcadey stuff that I don't really like in terms of VR FPS. I want, if I point somewhere and I shoot, I want to hit the thing that I was aiming at instead of having a spread of like you have in CS, which I do also play actually sometimes.
Interesting. So what else? So say the game shuts down, your Phoenix project that you're looking forward to, it doesn't come out till 2025. What does your next couple of years look like? What do you see yourself doing?
Probably now I'm actually picked up the gym, but it'll probably be traveling, training, physical training and stuff.
Judo?
Probably, yeah. Judo will definitely be a part of it. Just grappling overall. Yeah, yeah, grappling overall. Just traveling will be a thing because we also now have friends in we have Germany, UK, have a lot of people, so we kind of want to see those people too. So it will be traveling, training, working, and just I don't know. I really hope the Phoenix project comes up, and I'm not leaving VR. I do enjoy VR otherwise, but I just don't see myself using as much of it if Echo is gone, because there's we play mini golf on Fridays at times, which is great. It's mini golf. It's it just works. But you don't play that for hours on end. You play that for 2 hours, and then we'll see you next Friday to have a few drinks, and then do it again. VR FPS can spend more time, but the issue with VR FPS for me is also that you use the sticks to move. I stand still for a while and I lock my legs, because I'm one of those players who in Echo that I move a lot. I jump, I swing. I don't use stick to turn. I turn myself, and just I move a lot more, and that's why I can play a lot longer. So with VR FPS, I always get a bit like stiff legs. Even though I do enjoy it, it's good fun, but it's all max maybe 1 hour that I would spend on it. So,
what's the dream? Are you trying to make money as a player, or are you not bothered about making income from Echo? You're quite happy having your career separate, and this being
at the
hobby?
moment I'm happy. Like let's say like theoretically, if someone came, a certain party came and they would offer my current yearly wage to play Echo, I wouldn't need to think a long time to take
so
that.
if someone came along and they said, Sendo, you've been playing this since day one, we'll pay you this salary, we need you to come in here, you need to be coaching people a couple times a week, you're going to be playing, you're going to be competing every weekend.
There's no question. It's like I'll drop whatever I do now. I would, basically if someone paid me a livable wage to play Echo, to coach in Echo, in terms of like say comparably the same wage I'm getting now from my actual work. I would
without a doubt.
It's like not even a doubt. That would be a once in a lifetime chance. It's not likely. It's never going to happen in terms of that. But if there might be an era. Well, not for me, maybe. Well, who knows? Let's say there's a good chance. There might be a spot where this happens, and I would not mind to be a part of it, but we'll see. I'm optimistic usually about these things, and I think Echo likes Phoenix projects have a good chance to reach that stage. Well, as long as VR keeps growing, more and more people get headsets, more and more people play those games, there's definitely a chance at some point to get a livable wage from VR, which would be really nice. And I do hope it's an Echo-like game. It's just such a unique game amongst VR games and normal Pancake games as well.
So I've got a question I like to ask people, and like sometimes it doesn't fit too well, sometimes it fits really well, and I just never know what people are going to come out with. But so considering where we are with the game being shut down and like thinking about the long term, what's to come and things like this, what are you curious about at the moment? And it can be VR related, it can be nothing to do with VR. Other things that you're thinking about as you're driving,
what am I curious at the moment?
Whatever. What's been on your mind outside of Echo or in Echo?
Well, what am I curious about at the moment? I think in terms of for me it's like maybe the esports scene fully, because there's, even though now it's rather big, I feel like there's still so much to pull in from traditional sports side too into like virtual side. And there's spectators who are now older, who have watched the traditional sports, and we have generations that are now growing, that are used to games and everything. It's like I'm interested in like to see if in 10 years we have basically like just seeing the esports might take a bigger chunk from traditional sports than it is now, and just I'm kind of keen to see if there's a new. Because we have different types of like ChatGPTs and everything coming up now that will take pressure, but will also take more traditional jobs away. So more of the jobs that will happen will be in terms of more making the bigger picture work and just using those as a tool. And I'm kind of curious if esports will keep growing and just being a bigger part of general life, because now it's like if you talk to your grandma about VR esports or esports or anything, they'll just fly like over their heads.
Pardon.
But in 20 years, you have people who are grandpas who have played games their entire lives,
Yeah.
and they understand it. And I'm just wondering, like, if that's gonna be a thing where it's more of the more general than it is now, and we have professions and everything. That's I don't know. There's so many things because I kind of want to, at the moment with what's going on in real life, because I live next door neighbor to a country that is currently doing not doing good stuff down in Ukraine. So I like to keep thinking about the positive things that will happen in the next futures instead of another place going a bit nuts and that affecting my normal day-to-day life. I'd rather think about hopefully VR esports or whatever being successful instead. It's a
Does
weird
that affect
time.
your day-to-day life being in
In
Finland,
terms of what
living
I
in
do
Finland?
know, in terms of what I think about, yes, it's
Yeah.
not exactly constantly on my mind, but it's definitely a looming thing.
And how old are
Looming
your
thing.
kids?
10 and 8, turning
10
11
and 8.
and turning 9. So it's yeah, it won't hopefully affect them, but it's because we basically have a mandatory military service, and if we are
Yes.
called, we of course go. But it just does. It feels so out of place.
Yeah.
I felt like the world now seemed peaceful and everything was a bit hiding down under. I wasn't expecting to have a full blown war going on in Europe, and it definitely took a bit of a toll on thinking about long-term future in what I do, because so many things can be affected by it. I'm won't be like, if something happens, I won't be the first one going, but it's a weird time, like having to think about it and going back to the Cold War era, which I didn't we never had, like, because I wasn't that old to be a
You
part of
were
that time.
you're a 90s kid, right? You were born in the 80s, I'm guessing.
87, yeah.
Right.
So I was still there when the Soviet Union was a thing, but it went away when I was a really small kid, and we
Yeah.
had a recession afterwards. But I was a really small kid, so I couldn't understand anything from it. And I've grown into the era of like there being peace and everyone just looking to make trade and stuff like that. And then now we're suddenly in the stage of like, oh, okay, so we had a pandemic, we have a war. We have, before that we have the economic crisis 2008. That really was nice that I studied back then, because I wouldn't have gotten a job anyway. And then it's such a weird. There's so many things that get changes in 10 years. I really can't expect anything. It's like I'll just go with day to day. I dream about nice things, and then I'll do the day to day lives as they come, and think short term and everything in a bit more wider scale things. It's nice to think about the positive things that will happen instead of the possible not so nice near term future things that might happen.
What do you think about when you think about your kids? So you said 9 and 10, was it? Was it
Yeah.
9 and 11? Yeah, 9 and 10. So
Yeah.
they're going to become of the age soon where they will be, well, if they're not already, being on the internet. And by the time they're 18, 20, that internet could be something more like where we are right now.
Oh yeah, that'll change some. I like even with the social media side of the internet. I was there. I was basically browsing sites before Google, and we had certain links that we found, and then we had those places, and we're like, oh, there's video. Wow, this is amazing, and we had the more unfiltered version of the internet back then, and then I don't know. It could be really like I feel like we're approaching closer and closer to basically just integrating into the internet ourselves, and it's less because when when I was young, I was told you can't talk to strangers on the internet. and then now it's like and then it's like you had your internet site and you had your real life site, which is still somewhat normal, but so many people just have their personalities
Sendo.
coupled. That's the same one and the same.
This is the perfect point to ask you. Chip or no chip? Chip or no chip? Would you put a chip in your head and connect to the internet? and plug in.
Yes, but not the first person to do it.
Not the first person. That's the correct answer.
Yeah, let's say like given long enough of a testing phase and me seeing a list of side effects, then yes.
Yeah.
Being the first one to do that one, to implement something in my brains, no.
Okay, so say 1,000 people have done it, 0 side effects, everything's good. They just have access to the internet and everything. And it's amazing. They're loving life. They're earning more money because they can get more stuff done. All of that.
Is it easily upgradable? If yes, then yes.
It's actually, I don't know what it's like, but let's say for argument's sake,
but this is the dilemma for me too. It's like in terms of tech, if you implant yourself with a chip, that's not the final version of the chip. You want to upgrade it. You have a better feature thing coming next. How easy it is to swap it.
Well, it'd be a port, right? It'd be like a USB port on the back of your head. And
Basically software. But then, you can go in depth on it. Like, can you upgrade it? What does it actually do? How much does it cost? Does it come with a subscription plan? But yeah, let's given enough time, given enough testers and everything. Sure, of course.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Anything else that you want to say? Oh, another question I'd like to ask people as well. So you're of the ESL generation, like DK1, all of this, you've been around for a while. There's going to be tons of 13, 14, 15-year-old kids that are going to be watching this, and they're inspired by these kind of conversations and what's to come in these kind of industries. Is there anything that you'd say to them about, I don't know.
I think what has worked for me is so far that you will never know everything, but you can always figure out things. It's more on the... I think the worst thing that can happen to a person is that you are content with the stuff you know now. Doesn't matter if it's VR, doesn't matter if it's work, doesn't matter if it's home life or anything. You can always learn something new and be open to new things. If you're not, that's the end of that's basically your progression stops where you stop being interested in new things. Always look for something new. Even if it's you trying a new coffee brand, it doesn't matter. It's like you can find a new favorite coffee brand by trying something new. If you like tea, you can find a new nice tea. It's really like small things, but in terms of like VR tech and everything, it's good to be interested. It's good to ask questions. It's good to just be curious. That's probably my best advice. Be curious.
Nice. I'm glad I asked you the question about curiosity. All right. Nice one, Sendo. Appreciate you.
It was nice.
Thanks for doing this podcast. Good to chat.
No problem. It was a good chat. Yeah.